Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for our second webinar in our partnerships series, Getting Started. My name is Cassie Longoria, and I'm an early childhood education program specialist with the Texas Education Agency, and I'll be leading this webinar today. Today we'll be discussing benefits and barriers of partnerships, the partnership process, determining the local early childhood landscape in your community, how to identify potential partners, and additional partnership support. As I mentioned, my name is Cassie Longoria, and I'm an early childhood education program specialist with TEA. My contact information is listed here on this website, and I highly encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions related to partnerships. That is my specialty and my role at TEA, and I also manage a grant related to partnerships, so definitely feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to help at any time. Early learning partnerships are formal agreements between local education agencies, early learning centers, and/or Head Start programs to provide pre-kindergarten and/or comprehensive services. In these partnerships, children are dually enrolled, and therefore two or more sources of funding are blended together to provide a full day and/or a full year of care and education. Early learning centers, Head Start programs, and LEAs can also have informal partnerships in which they align certain things like professional development, curriculum, or assessments. But for the purposes of this webinar, we will be discussing formal partnerships where children are dual enrolled. Establishing partnerships can help increase pre-kindergarten access and enrollment, the quality of education that students receive, and alignment between entities. It helps increase access and enrollment because it provides families with additional options for pre-kindergarten, options in different parts of the community or different parts of the district that might be closer to the family's work or home or school, options with longer hours, or with comprehensive services. It also increases the quality of education children receive because each entity brings their own specialized expertise to the table in the partnership. For example, the LEA brings their expertise on public pre-kindergarten and standards, and the Early Learning Center or the Head Start program will bring expertise on services and child development for children birth to 5 years old. Lastly, alignment between all of the entities is beneficial to children and families because it helps the transition that families experience when they go from one program to another. LEAs can establish partnerships with early learning centers and Head Start programs to meet the requirement of offering full-day pre-kindergarten for eligible 4-year-old students under House Bill 3. LEAs may be granted an exemption from providing full-day pre-kindergarten if it's determined that the LEA would be required to construct classroom facilities to provide pre-kindergarten, or if implementation would result in fewer eligible children being enrolled. For example, this happens sometimes if the LEA is currently serving children in half-day programs. If they have 20 children in a morning program and 20 children in an afternoon program, totaling 40 children, going to full day would likely require the LEA to decrease to 20 children. An LEA may not receive an exemption unless the LEA has solicited and considered at a public meeting the following: proposals for partnerships with public or private entities regarding offering full-day pre-kindergarten for eligible 4-year-old students. Because of this requirement, it may be helpful for you all to learn information on how to get started in identifying potential partners and how to get started with the partnership process. Next, we'll discuss benefits of and barriers to partnerships. Partnerships benefit a wide range of stakeholders, including families and children, local education agencies, early learning centers and Head Start programs, and the early childhood education community in general. As I mentioned previously, families and children benefit from partnerships because of the extra services that are often provided, the location of the programs, and the hours of the programs. Families often need options that are closer to work or closer to school or home, and sometimes the options offered in current school districts may not work as well. Children benefit also from the extended services that may be offered, such as physical or oral health services that Head Start programs provide, or other similar services such as parenting programs, family engagement programs, nutrition, or access to basic needs programs. LEAs benefit from the specialized expertise of the early learning centers and the Head Start programs that they can provide for children birth to 5 years old. This is sometimes an area that LEAs are not as familiar with, so by partnering, they can benefit from that expertise of the partner. Early learning centers and Head Start programs benefit because of the new sustainable funding they are able to access for their programs that's often passed through from the LEA. This is the foundation school program funding you get for eligible children, as well as the new early education allotment that was created under House Bill 3. Lastly, the early childhood education community benefits as a whole when there are partnerships because of the alignment that we create on messaging around early childhood education and services for children and families. However, there are often barriers to partnerships. Partnerships definitely take a lot of work and communication, and these are some of the things that can often act as a barrier when pursuing partnerships. Poor collaboration between partners, differences across funding streams, differences in standards and regulations, as well as a lack of understanding of the local early childhood landscape. Because of all these things, it takes a lot of work to make a partnership successful, but we will talk about these things throughout this webinar and throughout the series of webinars that we will offer in hopes that we can help facilitate successful partnerships across the state. Next, I'm going to discuss the partnership process. The partnership process involves determining the local early childhood landscape, identifying potential partners and partnership models, building relationships between partners, developing a contract and beginning services, and evaluating and sustaining partnerships. For the purposes of today's webinar, we are going to focus on the first two steps, determining the local early childhood landscape and identifying potential partners. First, we'll discuss determining the local early childhood landscape. To determine the early childhood landscape, LEAs, early learning centers, and Head Start might want to look at a variety of things. They'll need to look at the LEA's need to construct, lease, repurpose, or issue bonds to construct, lease, or repurpose classroom space to meet the full-day pre-kindergarten requirement for eligible 4-year-old students. You should also look at district capacity to serve eligible 3- and 4-year-old students, the needs of families, enrollment gaps, and waiting lists at early learning centers and Head Start programs. Other things that should be considered include underserved sections of neighborhoods, communities, and school districts, early learning center or Head Start program capacity to serve eligible children, comprehensive services that early learning centers or Head Start programs may be able to provide, the availability of additional funding, such as child care subsidies, and also local successes or challenges with existing partnerships. These are all things that you can analyze prior to beginning the partnership process, It'll help you inform your plan, and it'll help you be a little more strategic when determining what path to go down for your partnership. There are many data sources you can utilize when determining your early childhood landscape. For example, the first is an access or enrollment map. LEAs, early learning centers, and Head Start programs alike would benefit from mapping out where their children are coming from. This will help you identify if there are certain pockets of your community, of your district, that are not being served. So by mapping out exactly where the children come from, this will help you analyze those gaps and those trends in services. You can also utilize TPEER, which stands for Texas Public Education Information Resource, to analyze the enrollment gap in your school district. This is a free service that's open to the public, so anyone can access this website, and you can run a report for your district, which will help you analyze the enrollment gap in your district. This will help you determine how many students are being served at your public schools. Once you analyze that number, you can figure out how many children may be not enrolled in services at all, or maybe they're enrolled in an early learning center or Head Start program. You may also wish to look at childcare desert data. This is a great resource that Children at Risk developed. It's an interactive tool where you can analyze data down to the zip code level to see where childcare is available and also the quality of childcare options. If you overlay this with enrollment and access maps with the school district, you can see which areas of the state are not being served at all, and it'll help you be strategic in where you offer additional options for pre-K. You should also look at program standards and regulations. There are many differences between the standards and regulations of LEAs, early learning centers, and Head Start programs. Prior to partnering, you would want to analyze these standards and regulations to see where you would need to focus on alignment or if there's any discrepancies that you want to focus on. You can also use the results of program evaluations. For example, the Texas Education Agency has an early childhood program self-assessment you can utilize to look at the strengths and gaps in your services and quality. By knowing your strengths and gaps, you can prioritize which entities you may want to partner with who might be able to help you address gaps in services. Lastly, you can utilize results of family surveys or focus groups with families to help influence your partnership decisions. By knowing the needs of families and the barriers that they have in accessing pre-K, it can help you prioritize who to partner with. For example, if transportation is an issue, maybe you can partner with an entity that's located in a different part of your district that would be easier for families to access. Next, we will discuss identifying potential partners. Many communities have stakeholders who focus on early childhood education. This slide lists some of those connections that you may wish to make in order to help identify potential partners. These include city and county government officials, institutes of higher education. For example, some of them have an early childhood education department or lab schools that you could connect with. Your local child care licensing staff, Head Start programs, the school district, local workforce board, nonprofit organizations that focus on early childhood education, your regional education service center, the Texas Association for the Education of Young Children, and local city chapters, the Texas Head Start Association, and also Texas School Ready. Again, these are just some of the partners that you could potentially reach out to figure out who you could partner with or who might be a good fit for your entity. When considering partners, know that partners must meet one of the following eligibility requirements. They must be Texas Rising Star 3-star certification or higher, nationally accredited, a Head Start program provider, Texas School Ready, or meet the requirements under this Texas Education Code. It states that if a school district contracts with a private entity for the operation of the district's pre-K program, the program must at a minimum comply with the applicable child care licensing standards as well as meet the pre-kindergarten requirements. When considering potential partners, you'll want to consider partners who meet the eligibility criteria or have the capacity to meet the criteria. If the entity is not quite at Texas Rising Star 3 or higher, for example, you could help them get there. So if you find a partner who you have a good relationship with, but they don't meet one of the eligibility criteria, you can help them reach that point. You'll also want to consider partners who have committed leadership, who provide comprehensive services or extended hours, or have some characteristic that meets the needs of your families, are located in a neighborhood or pocket of your district that you are not currently serving, it has a common vision or philosophy on early childhood or the capacity and interest in creating a joint vision, and then understand that partnerships take time, trust, open communication, and continuous improvement. Creating partnerships it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time and trust and open communication. So it's really important that not only partners meet the eligibility criteria and have the target number of children that you want to serve, but that there's someone that you get along with and that you can create a joint vision with. Here are some additional considerations when looking at potential partners. You'll want to consider the relationship with the partner. So do you currently have a working relationship with this partner, or is this a new partner? You'll also want to look at differences in standards across programs. So if the program is, for example, Texas Rising Star or nationally accredited, or if they're a Head Start program, you'll want to look at those differences in standards such as teacher certification, requirements for meals or nutrition, health services, family engagement, or other things of that nature. You'll also want to look at the program's capacity to meet program requirements across both entities. Entities must meet the requirements of each of their funding entities, and so you'll want to be sure they have the capacity to meet all of those requirements. You'll also want to ensure that the partner has the capacity to establish a financially stable partnership. So target number of eligible or enrolled students, number of students eligible for or already receiving child care subsidies, and number of students enrolled in the Head Start program. Next, I'm going to discuss a resource to help LEAs and early learning centers and Head Start programs enter into partnerships. And this is called the Regional Early Childhood Education Support Specialist Grant, or as we call it, RECESS. The Texas Education Agency received funding from the Texas Workforce Commission for the RECESS grant. The RECESS grant is designed to increase targeted early childhood education and technical assistance for LEAs and early learning centers. Education service centers and nonprofit organizations were eligible to apply for this funding. One of the focuses of this funding is to help LEAs, early learning centers, and Head Start programs establish partnerships. We have 4 grantees for the purposes of this regional public-private partnerships focus of the grant. We have ESC Region 9, Commit to Dallas, which is in Region 10, the Texas Association for the Education of Young Children, which is in Region 13, and ESC Region 20. Grantees will mostly provide services in their respective regions, but are also able to provide services outside of the region. The grantees for this portion of the RECESS grant are listed on this slide. If you are located in one of these regions, or if you have a question about partnerships, you can definitely reach out to the Recess grantees located here. Their phone numbers and email addresses are listed here, and they can assist you with partnerships. In closing, you'll want to ensure when beginning this partnership process that you're utilizing data to inform your partnership plan. You can also utilize local community organizations and stakeholders to identify potential partners. And lastly, you'll want to ensure that the partnership is a good fit considering the local early childhood context. Our division will be releasing a series of additional webinars on partnerships, as we know that many LEAs, early learning centers, and Head Start programs will be increasingly exploring partnerships in the coming years. Be sure to check our website located at the link on this slide for additional webinars that will be coming out on this topic. Again, my name is Cassie Longoria and my contact information is listed here. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you have about partnerships or if there's anything I can do to assist. We are here and we are happy to help. Thank you for being here and I hope to talk to you all soon.